Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, you're welcome to Sew with Mediva. On this channel, I'll teach you how to make beautiful outfits using the most simplified method. And if you're a returning subscriber or a returning viewer, thank you for sticking to my channel. So in today's tutorial, I'll be teaching you guys how to make this simple 6 pieces bustier dress with Ankara fabric and lace fabric. So I achieved this style using only 3 yards of Ankara fabric and about half yard of lace fabric. And this video is very detailed, guys, very easy to understand and very beginners friendly. So guys, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you find it useful, leave a comment, share with your loved ones, and also subscribe to my channel. So we'll be drafting out on the pattern paper first before we transfer to the fabric, and I'm gonna head to mark my basic vertical measurements just as you can see. So let me show you guys how I came about these lines. So the first line here is the shoulder line, and from my shoulder to my bust point is 11 inches, to my under bust is 14 inches, to my half length is 16 inches, and to my hip line is 23 inches. So the first thing you want to do is to just label the line so that you won't be confused. This is the waistline, this is the hip line. So come over to the shoulder line and place your shoulder to shoulder measurements divided by 2. So remember the paper is in a fold of 2 and I'm marking from the closed angle. So mine is 8 inches, and then from that 8 inches I'll come down by my round armhole divided by 2, which is 9 inches. So connect the points together this way and then further extend the line to form your chest line. After doing that, the next thing is to mark the neckline measurements. So the wideness of the neckline I'm working with is 4 inches, and the depth of the neckline for the front panel is also 4 inches. So let me go ahead to just use my curved ruler to connect it. And then I'll come over to this armhole line to take my shoulder slope, which is 1 inch, and then I'll connect it to the neckline width this way. So the next thing to do is to come over to this armhole line and take the midpoint. So for me, it's 4 inches. And then I'll come to this chest line and place my round bust measurements divided by 4, which is 10.5 inches for me. And then I'll come into this point by half an inch. I'll connect the 3 points together to form my armhole curve using my curved ruler. So after connecting, this is what you should. So the next thing to do is to determine where you want your yoke to start. So I'm going to come down from the shoulder line by 7 inches and just mark it there. So this upper part is going to be for the lace fabric, while the lower part is going to be for Ankara. So I'll take my ruler and just connect the points together. So I'll go ahead and label that part down as the yoke before we place our dart measurements. So for the dart, divide your nipple to nipple measurements by 2. For me, it's 4 inches. I'm going to add half an inch to it for the joining allowance. So I'm going to mark 4.5 inches on all the lines. And after marking, I'll take my ruler and connect all the points together. So I'll come over now to the under bust and take 1.5 inches on both sides. But if you're on the small size, you can make use of 1 inch on both sides. And then I'll come over to the hip line and take 1 inch on both sides. Small size should take 0.5 inches on both sides there. And then I'll connect the lines together this way. Then after doing that, I'll come over to the bust point and come down by 1 inch and go up again by another 1 inch. And then I'll use my curved ruler to just connect it this way, forming a curve to form my bustier. I'll curve it out this way, and then now I'll extend this line now down to meet the yoke line, and then I'll take 0.5 inches on both sides. I'll take 0.5 inches on both sides of the line and just connect it to meet that 1 inch I marked earlier. Connect it this way, and I'll connect the other side as well. So after doing that, I'm going to measure whatever I have inside this dart. So I'll use it to extend the yoke part. So I'll extend it by 1 inch so that when you join your close up that upper part, it's not going to truncate the size of your dress. And then I'll form a new armhole curve. So I'll just disregard the older one. So this is the one we'll be working with now. So you should have something that looks like this as well. The next thing is to mark the round body. So the next thing we want to do is to place the round body measurement. So on the bust line, I'm going to place my round bust measurements divided by 4 and add 2 inches to it for seam allowance. And on the under bust, place your round under bust measurement divided by 4. Add whatever you used as your dart and then add your seam allowance. So for me, I have 13.5 inches. And on the waistline, I have the same 13.5 inches. And I'll come over to the hip line now and place my round hip measurement divided by 4. I'll add the dart and seam allowance and then place whatever I have there, which is 14.5 inches. So I'll go ahead now to connect the points together. And then I'll form my hip curve. Then I'll just extend this hip line now down to the full length of the paper. So the next thing I want to do is to cut it out. So I'll just go ahead to cut it out. So remember, this is the new armhole curve. I'll cut out the yoke, take the neckline and the shoulder slope. I'll set that one aside while I open up the dart area. So after opening up, I'm going to show you guys how to use this pattern to cut out your 6 pieces. So let's move now to the most important part of this tutorial. So these are the fabrics we'll be making use of. This is going to be for the center front and the other fabric is going to be for the sides. So we're going to be needing 2 pieces for the side. So my fabric is in a fold of 2 and I place my pattern paper on it this way, making sure I have about half an inch at the upper part. And then I made the fabric to the length of the dress I want. So I want about 38 inches for my dress. So I added about 13 inches to the base of my paper for the remaining part of my dress and the folding allowance at the base. So what I did first was to extend these lines down to the full length of my fabric, and I made sure I have about 4 inches on both sides of my fabric. So right now I'm going to start from my waistline. So I'll take the 4 inches on both sides. So you can decide to use 5 inches, 6 inches, depending on how much fabric you have and how wide you want your flare to be. So I'll mark the 4 inches now on both sides of the fabric. And then from my waistline, I'll take my long ruler, starting from the waistline. I would slant it down to meet that 4 inches mark to form a flare. So I'll slant it this way on this side, and then I'll come over to the other side as well, and from the waistline I'll slant it down to meet the 4 inches mark. So this is going to give that flare on our dress. So I'll slant it this way. So right now I'll show you guys how to form this flare for the center front. So for the center front, we're going to need just one piece of it, and I have the pattern paper in a fold of 2. So my fabric is also in a fold of 2, and I've gone ahead to also extend the line down to the full length of the fabric. So I'll take the same 4 inches. So make sure you maintain the same inches for your flares. I'm making use of 4. So from my waistline now, I'm going to connect it down to meet that 4 inches this way. So after connecting, this is what we have, and I also have half an inch at the upper part for the joining allowance. So let's go ahead to cut them out now. So let's start with the center front. So I'll just go ahead and cut it out. Then when I get to the waistline, I'll just continue cutting this way, and then I'll leave half an inch at the upper part for joining to the U. So let's go ahead to cut out the sides. So remember, we're going to have 2 pieces for the sides. So I'll just keep cutting this way, and then when I get to the waist, I'll just continue. Just continue cutting, and then I'll make sure I have about half an inch at the upper part. So this is what the front panel looks like after cutting out. So I'll set them aside now. I'll work on the back part. So for the back panel, I'm going to head to mark the basic vertical measurements, and the first line is the shoulder line, the second is the bust point, the third is the waistline, and the last one is the hip line. And I went ahead to take the neckline measurements. So the depth of the back neckline is 2 inches, and I added my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. I took the armhole just as you can see. So the next thing we want to do now is to take the that measurement. So from the zipper allowance, I'm going to take the same 4.5 inches I took for the front panel, mark it on the lines, and use my rulers to connect it together. So after doing that, I'll come over now to the hip line and take 0.5 inches on both sides of the line, and then I'll connect it this way to meet the bust point, just below the bust point. So for this back, we won't be making use of yoke. So we're just going to take a simple princess dart bustier for the back part. So I'll come down here by 5 inches and then just take my ruler to connect it down to my dart line this way. So this is what we have. And then the next thing to do is to mark the round body measurement. So on the bust line, I'll place my round bust measurements divided by 4, and then I'll add 2 inches to it for seam allowance. So remember, you're taking all these measurements from the zipper point, from the zipper line, not before it. So I'll mark my round width measurement divided by 4 and add my seam allowance. I'll come over to the hip line and mark my round hip measurement divided by 4. I'll add the dart allowance and also add my seam allowance of 2 inches. So I'll go ahead to just connect the points together, and then I'll form my hip curve this way. So after connecting, this is what we have. I'll just extend the line down to the full length of the paper, and I'll also extend my dart legs down to the full length of the paper. So before we cut it out, let's go ahead to remove the zipper bulge allowance. So since my zipper allowance is 1.5 inches, I'm going to take 0.5 inches from the closed angle of the paper. And then I'll take my ruler and just connect it to meet the neckline this way. And then also connect it to meet the lower part of my. So I'm going to cut this part out. I'm going to cut it out. So let's go ahead to cut out the pattern. So let's go ahead now to cut it out. Cut out the dart point. I'll open it up this way, and then I'll just cut the neckline and take out the zipper bulge allowance. So after cutting out, I'll show you guys how to use the patterns to cut out the fabric. So just like the front panel, we're going to be having two pieces for the sides for this particular fabric. So let me go ahead to just label it. So I've used my pin to hold it down, and I've made up the length to the full length of the dress. So what I'm going to do now is to just extend it down to the full length of the fabric, and then from the waistline I'm going to slant it down to the 4 inches mark, just like I did with the front panel. I'll slant it down this way, and then I'll come over to the other side. I'll take my 4 inches and I'll slant it from the full length. So for the center back, remember we're going to be having two pieces of it because of the zipper allowance. So I just measured from the shoulder to make up the full length of my dress, and then now I'll extend the paper down to the full length, and I'll take 4 inches on only one side. So I'm just repeating the same thing I did with the front panel. So I'll just extend it this way. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to cut it out. So I'll cut out the I'm going to open up the center back for the zipper. We'll be inserting our zipper. I'll cut it straight down. So you're only slanting one side for the center back and the center front. So I'll take out the neckline, I'll take the shoulder slope, and then I'll cut out the other sides. So let's cut out the sides. So remember, we're going to be having two pieces of the sides for this particular fabric. So after cutting, the next thing we want to do is to start joining the fabrics together. So we're going to start joining the front panels now, and this is the yoke. We're making use of lace fabric. I added half an inch to the lower part and half an inch to the shoulders for joining, and then this side I also added half an inch to the upper part for joining to the yoke. So let's remove the pattern paper. So after taking off the pattern paper, this is what we have. So we're going to start joining these fabrics now. So I won't be using lining for this dress, and I won't be padding the bust area. But if you want to pad yours, you can just go ahead and do that and stop at the under bust area. So I'm going to just place them this way, right sides facing each other, and then I'll use half an inch. The half an inch I added while drafting the pattern, I'll use it to stitch it all the way down to the full length of the dress. Stitch it all the way down. So when I'm done doing that, I'll do the same thing for the other side. I'll place them right sides facing each other. So after joining this part, I'm going to join the back panels as well, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like. So after joining the fabrics together, this is what it looks like. So if you're going to be making use of lining, you should have joined the lining pieces also like this to turn it over. So these are the back panels. I have joined it together also, and this is the zipper allowance, the zipper opening at the back. So I'm just going to insert my zipper now. I'm going to insert my zipper. So this is the zipper I'm working with. I'm just going to place it on it this way using my 1 inch, my 1.5 inches zipper allowance, and then I'll stitch it all the way down very close to the zipper teeth. And then when I'm done stitching on that side, I'll flip it to the other side this way and also stitch it all the way down to the point where my zipper is going to stop. So after starting my zipper, I'm going to come back to the front panel and join the yoke. So if you're going to use lining, place the yoke on it this way and then place your lining on it before you stitch it all the way down. So after stitching, I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. So after starting the zipper for the back panel, this is what it looks like. And I've also gone ahead to finish up the neckline. I just turned it over with the same fabric. So for the neckline of the front panel, I'm making use of this fabric, and it's going to be on the right side. So I'm going to place this fabric on the wrong side of the front panel and just stitch it all the way around it. So I place it on the wrong side, not on the right side. And when I'm done, I'm going to turn it over to the right side now. I'll fold it in twice and stitch it all the way down. So when I'm done doing that, I'll show you guys. So after piping the front neckline, this is what it looks like. So this is what the right side of the neckline looks like. So the next thing to do is to join the shoulder areas together. So I'm going to place them this way, right sides facing each other, and then I'll stitch it together using the 1/2 inch seam allowance. So after joining the shoulders, we're going to attach the sleeves first before we close up the sides. So I'll show you guys what it looks like when I'm done. So after joining the shoulders, this is what we have. So we're going to be fixing our sleeves in before we close up the sides. So let's go ahead to do that now. So we're making use of this simple short sleeve for this dress, and I have a detailed video on how to cut a basic sleeve. I'll leave the link in the description box. So let's attach the sleeve to the dress. So to attach the sleeve, the first thing you want to do is to notch the center point of the sleeve. Just go ahead and make a small cut there, and then open up the armhole of the dress and place the sleeve on it this way, right sides facing each other. Match the point you notched to the point you joined your shoulders and use your pins to secure it. And then go ahead to stitch it all the way down to this point. You can use your pins to hold it first before you stitch it down. And I'll stitch the other side. I'll repeat the same thing for the other sleeve and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So after inserting the sleeve, this is what it looks like. I did the same thing for the other side. I also went ahead to fold in the base twice. So the next thing I want to do now is to close up the sides of the dress. So I'm going to just open it up this way and match the front and the back panels right side facing each other this way, and then I'll close up the sleeve as well. So whatever you took out as your seam allowance when drafting your pattern, that is what you're going to use to join the sides together. So I'm going to stitch it using my seam allowance all the way to the waistline, and then I will close up the sides all the way down. I'll repeat the same thing for the other side. I'll also fold in the base of my dress. I'll fold it in, and then I'll show you guys the finished product of this dress. So guys, after closing up the sides, this is what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and iron it out before I wear it. So I also went ahead to fold in the base twice, like I said earlier. So this is where we end this video for today, guys. I hope you found it useful and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and I'll